One thing we all have in common is we all like food. Some of us are sensible about it and eat healthily. Some of us are not so sensible and overindulge until we become fat fucks. I'm going to the gym, fuck off. But there was once a man who ate extreme amounts that no normal human should have been able to consume. And he would very often eat things he wasn't supposed to. Really wasn't supposed to, in a moral sense. And he didn't do it because he was hungry. He did it because he just couldn't help it. Tarrare. Before we get into this, mad lad, here we are back again with Raid Shadow Legends. They decided to sponsor me again, even though last time they made me edit out the joke about Elaine having massive. This absolute beast of a game is sitting at 10 million downloads in just 3 months and still rising. This game is hotter than some of the takes I get in my Twitter mentions. I personally enjoy this game and think it is the greatest thing since not just sliced bread, but bread. The game has PvE dungeons with an immersive story, or, if you're a real man, you can play the PvP mode and farm salt, which is why that's my favourite mode. You can even spice it up with different champions and you're going to be spoiled for choice because there's over 400 for you to collect. The game has more characters than I've had hot dinners because apparently pot noodles don't count. So click the link down in the description and you'll get 50,000 free silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player programme. So click the link, because daddy needs to eat. Tarrare was born in the French countryside around approximately 1772, but unfortunately we don't have an exact record of his birth, and we also believe that Tarrare might not have been his real name, but a nickname. While raising him, his mother and father noticed that no matter how much they fed him, he would always be hungry, and apparently in his teenage years, he ate a quarter of a cow over the course of a single day. Tarrare's appetite was bad news for his household. His family were quite poor, and Tarrare kept eating everything in the house, even when he was told not to. He just couldn't control his compulsion to do it. It got so bad that there was a risk of his family starving to death, so his mother and father, who couldn't take it anymore, simply threw Tarrare out onto the street. Tarrare ended up joining up with a band of thieves and prostitutes where he stole and begged for food. One of the weird things about Tarrare is despite his massive intake of food, he was a skinny guy. Around the age of 17, he apparently weighed around 100 pounds and he remained skinny for his whole life. He was average height, his hair was fair and described as unusually soft, but there were even stranger things about Tarrare's body. He stunk. He apparently had the worst body odour in recorded history. It was even described in the London Medical and Physical Journal as being to such a degree that it could not be endured within the distance of 20 paces. People said that after he had eaten, his body odour would get even worse, to the point where you could apparently see a visible vapour rising off of his body. His eyes would become bloodshot, he would burp and fart a lot, and he would become very lethargic. He would also do farts that would shake the earth to its very core, and a lot of people think that this is where the nickname Tarrare came from, because French expressions such as bonbon Tarrare or Tarrare bombardier are used to describe fanfares or explosions. He also had constant diarrhea. It seemed that his stomach acid was so strong that it would just liquefy absolutely everything he had eaten, and because he would eat so much, the diarrhea was constant and really bad. Doctors actually described his diarrhea as fetid beyond all conception. Imagine your shit being so bad that there is a historical record of it. But the main thing that surprised a lot of people when they first met Tarrare was his mouth. He had an unusually large mouth with almost no lips showing. It was essentially just this huge line going all the way across his face. And that just sounds fucking creepy. Another strange thing about him was his skin. His skin was apparently very loose and very stretchy. It was said that whenever Tarrare had actually eaten until he was full, his stomach would actually stretch right out like a huge inflated balloon, and when he hadn't eaten anything, he could actually wrap the loose skin around his waist. The man just sounds like a human scrotum. This stretchy, loose skin meant that Tarrare could hold 10 apples in his mouth or 12 eggs in his mouth without them breaking. This trick, accompanied with Tarrare's strange eating habits, actually came in very handy for him because he ended up joining up with a conman's travelling freak show as a warm-up act. Tarrare's act involved him swallowing corks, stones, and entire baskets of apples by swallowing each apple whole. The act also involved him eating live animals. Some of them, apparently, were rats people had found in the street. Tarrare's job was to get the crowd happy, cheering, and warmed up in preparation for the conman's show, where he tried to sell the crowd bullshit medical cures that didn't work. Tarrare quit the travelling freak show and decided that he wanted to do it alone, and he continued this exact same act on the streets of Paris, and he was actually quite successful until after one performance he actually suffered a severe intestinal obstruction, and so members of the crowd had to actually carry him to Hotel Dieu Hospital. The crowd handed Tarrare over to a surgeon called Dr. Giraud, who treated Tarrare with high-potency laxatives and was able to successfully remove the blockage. Tarrare said that as thanks to the surgeon, he would swallow the surgeon's watch and chain as a joke. Dr. Giraud was unamused by this and said to Tarrare, "If you do that, I'll cut you open to get them back." Tarrare decided not to do it. Not long after that, the War of the First Coalition broke out, and Tarrare decided to sign up with the French Revolutionary Army. But, as you can imagine, the military rations he was provided with did not satisfy his appetite. He would do jobs for other soldiers in exchange for a share of their rations, but he would also scavenge for scraps of food in various refuse piles and dung heaps. Since he wasn't getting as much food as he would usually get, he gets submitted to the military hospital with a case of extreme exhaustion, and so to combat this, the doctors decided to quadruple his rations. It still wasn't enough. He was still scavenging for food in the refuse piles and dung heaps, but he was also stealing scraps of food from other patients, as well as, on many occasions, sneaking into the apothecary and eating all of the ingredients. This strange behaviour eventually caught the attention of the doctors. Two medical professionals called Dr. Courville and George Didier asked their superiors if they could actually keep Tarrare in the military hospital so that they could run a series of physiological experiments. This was given the go-ahead by Baron Percy, who was the Surgeon-in-Chief of the hospital, and he was also the doctor that Tarrare would end up becoming closest with. So Courville, Didier and Percy started a series of experiments to find out what was going on with Tarrare's body, what makes him tick, and why is he the way he is. And these experiments got dark. First, they decided to see just how much Tarrare could eat. So they prepared a meal that could have fed 15 people. It had things like meat pies, plates of salted grease, gallons and gallons of milk, and various other items. Usually hospital staff would actually have Tarrare restrained whenever he's around food to prevent him from getting to it, but on this occasion, they decided to undo his straps. As soon as they did, Tarrare immediately ran over to the table that had a meal for 15 people sitting on it, and Tarrare ate the entire thing in a single sitting, and then fell asleep. Then the doctors did something a little fucked up. They gave Tarrare a live cat. Tarrare immediately ripped the cat's abdomen open with his mouth, drank its blood, and then ate the entire thing apart from its bones. Shortly afterwards, Tarrare vomited up the cat's fur. The doctors then started giving Tarrare various live animals, including things like snakes, lizards, and puppies. Tarrare killed and ate all of them. On one occasion, he was handed a large live eel. Tarrare apparently crushed the eel's head with his teeth, and then swallowed it whole. After a few months of being used for experiments in the hospital, the military board were asking the hospital when Tarrare could return to active duty. The doctors actually fought against this because they didn't want to lose their fascinating test subject. The The doctors came up with a plan where Tarrare could return to active duty, but at the same time still contribute to science. They had Tarrare swallow a small wooden box with a document hidden inside it. The next day, they fished the box out of Tarrare's shit and opened it to find out that the document was perfectly intact and still readable. They did a demonstration of the experiment in front of the commanders of the Army of the Rhine, and there were even rumours that Napoleon himself was present at this demonstration. The experiment was successful, and it was decided that Tarrare would be recruited as a spy who would smuggle documents in his stomach. As a reward for the experiment being successful, Tarrare was given a wheelbarrow that contained 30 pounds of raw bull lungs and livers, which he immediately started eating in front of the horrified commanders. I just find it quite funny that it's possible that Napoleon himself watched Tarrare sifting through his own shit to find a wooden box and then immediately eating a wheelbarrow full of guts. Even though the top brass were convinced of Tarrare's physical abilities, they were not too sure about his mental capacity because Tarrare was not the brightest bulb. In fact, he was actually pretty stupid, so they decided at first to only trust him with non-sensitive documents. Tarrare's first mission was to swallow a message and smuggle it behind enemy lines to a French colonel who was being held prisoner by Prussian forces in a fortress near Neustadt. Tarrare was told that the document was of great military importance, but in reality all the document was asking the French colonel to confirm if he had received the message and to report back with any information about the movement of Prussian troops. Tarrare set out on his mission disguised as a German peasant, and not long after he crossed enemy lines and he was near Landau, he was confronted by Prussian forces, and Tarrare, being the absolute genius that he is, replied to them in French. He was immediately arrested for being a spy. They strip-searched him and found nothing. He was then given a savage whipping by Prussian forces, but he still refused to hand over any information. He was brought before the Prussian commander, General Zoegli, and he still refused to talk. So Zoegli had him imprisoned. Now, one thing that was common to do with prisoners back in the day, on top of the torture, was to deprive them of food to help break down their will. But what the Prussians didn't know is that for Tarrare, the torture wasn't the whippings or the beatings. No, the real torture was being deprived of food. After 24 hours, he cracked and told them everything. He told the Prussians that he was carrying crucial military intel in his stomach. So the Prussians chained him to a latrine and waited for the documents to reveal themselves. When the Prussians managed to finally get a hold of the document, Zoegli was absolutely furious to discover that it was not the crucial military intel that Tarrare said it was. Tarrare himself was also very surprised by this. Zoegli flew into a rage and ordered that Tarrare be immediately executed, and so Tarrare was led to the gallows and had a noose put around his neck. But right before Tarrare was about to suffer a short drop and a sudden stop, Zoegli, at the very last second, called off the execution. I think this was some sort of poetic punishment to deceive Tarrare in the same way that Zoegli felt Tarrare had deceived him. They took him down from the gallows, beat the absolute shit out of him, and let him go. Tarrare eventually managed to find his way back behind French lines. This whole ordeal scared the shit out of Tarrare, and he didn't want to do any further military service, so he went back to the military hospital and begged Dr. Percy to take him back in for more experiments, but he also asked the doctors to cure him of his appetite. So Dr. Percy attempted some very bizarre methods to try and cure Tarrare's appetite. He tried things like opium, wine vinegar, tobacco pills, and large quantities of soft-boiled eggs for some reason, but obviously none of that seemed to work. Tarrare tried to go back to his usual antics of stealing hospital food and stealing ingredients from the apothecary, but as the doctors knew Tarrare was back, they locked these places down so Tarrare couldn't get in. So he would sneak out of the hospital and eat discarded offal that had been dumped by butcher shops, and he was even seen fighting with stray dogs over dead animals they found in the street. He was caught many times in the hospital trying to drink buckets of blood that had been collected from patients undergoing bloodletting, and several times he was kicked out of the hospital morgue for trying to eat the dead bodies. The hospital staff were getting sick of Tarrare and all of the problems he was causing, and they begged Dr. Percy to send Tarrare away to an insane asylum. But Dr. Percy really wanted to continue his experiments, so he always defended Tarrare's presence at the hospital. Until one day, a toddler went missing from one of the wards. Tarrare was immediately a suspect, but there was no evidence. Either because Tarrare didn't do it, or he ate all the evidence. But on this occasion, Dr. Percy didn't defend him, and Tarrare was chased out of the hospital by furious staff. Tarrare's whereabouts were unknown, until 4 years later, when Dr. Percy received a letter from a Dr. M. Tessier of Versailles Hospital saying that a patient of his really wished to see him. It was Tarrare. Dr. Percy visited Tarrare, who had only just recently submitted himself to this hospital. Tarrare was bedridden and was too weak to even sit up. Tarrare said that he felt like his condition had been brought on by a golden fork that he had swallowed, and he hoped that Dr. Percy would be able to remove it. Upon examination, Dr. Percy could see that Tarrare was suffering from advanced tuberculosis, and there was nothing that he or any of the doctors could do for him. And so, a month later, Tarrare passed away at the approximate age of 26. In the name of science, the medical board wanted Tarrare's body to be dissected so that they could actually finally discover why he was the way that he was, but they wanted it done right away because for some strange reason, Tarrare's body was decomposing at a rate much faster than a normal corpse's. However, lots of the top surgeons said, and I quote, "Fuck no, I'm not touching that disgusting thing." Okay, that's probably not what they said, but it's probably pretty damn close. Dr. Tessier, however, was very curious to find out what the hell was going on with Tarrare's body, so he volunteered to do the dissection. During the autopsy, they discovered that Tarrare's throat was abnormally wide all the way down. They found that if they tilted his head back and opened his mouth, they could actually see clearly all the way down directly into his stomach. When they opened him up, they found that his body was full of pus, and that his liver and gallbladder were unusually large, but the most surprising thing they found, obviously, was his stomach. Despite the thing being absolutely covered in ulcers, his stomach actually took up almost all of his abdominal cavity. The man was essentially a walking stomach. The golden fork was never found. There have been a lot of theories behind why Tarrare was the way that he was. Some people think he had hyperthyroidism. Some people think he suffered damage to his amygdala. Some people think he just had an extreme form of pica. But for me personally, I think he was just a really shit X-Man. Before Alex Jones plays us out, I'm just going to use this opportunity to update you all on a few things. I am going to be in America next month, and I'm going to be speaking at the International Conference of Men's Issues, which is in Chicago, Illinois, and it's running from the 16th until the 18th of August. I am also going to be speaking at Minds IRL, which is going to be in Pittman, New Jersey on the 31st of August. I'll put the links to buy tickets to these events down below. Another few not so serious announcements. I am now streaming on DLive. I stream on there quite regularly. If you want to subscribe to that, the link's down below. Sue now has a YouTube channel where she decided to go the opposite direction of me and do cutesy, wootsy, baking, homely, nice. It's gay shit. It's gay shit. But if that's what you're into, the link to her channel's down below. Sorry, babe. And now this one too. I have a P.O. box. Right? A P.O. box has now been opened. But there is a few things that I am going to go over before we proceed here. Yes, the P.O. box is located in Motherwell. No, I am not from, nor do I live in Motherwell. One thing to let you know about the P.O. box is that the boxes will not get opened by me. I don't even get the boxes, you know, I won't be able to bring them home and do iDub style unboxing videos. The boxes go through advanced security screening, which means they get opened by post office staff at the sorting office. So if there is any substances in it like drugs, or, you know, human waste, or a bomb, or anything like that, then it's not going to affect me, but it might ruin a few days down at the post office. So even if you're planning on just doing a funny prank, or, you know, you're possibly planning on trying to kill me, it's not me that opens the boxes. It's done all at the sorting office. I only get the boxes, I only get the contents of the boxes once they've been deemed to be safe. So please, please, please don't do anything stupid.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe.